Fentanyl. Just one pill can kill. One pill can kill is the message that we hope you'll remember from this series. Over 150 people die every day from overdose and poisoning related to synthetic opioids like fentanyl, and that's 5 in the state of Texas. Many of them are young people, children, teenagers, and the numbers are growing all over the country. In our series on fentanyl, you'll hear from professionals and you'll hear from parents about the challenges we are all facing from this deadly drug. Well, I'm delighted today to welcome 2 guests to our program. First, I'd like to welcome Officer Chris Bianez, and you can tell who he is because he's wearing the uniform. He's been a Plano police officer for over almost 3 decades, 26 years, and for the last 16 years, he's really been focusing with the Crime Prevention Unit, helping organizations protect what they value most: people, information, and property. And right over here, Jean-Marc Meulman. He's a professional and chemical dependency counselor and the program administrator at the Collin County Substance Abuse Program right here outside of Dallas, Texas. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Jim.
So, if I may call you Chris.
That's perfect.
How did you get into this field? Because it really must be very tough, especially now where you're seeing such a rise in fentanyl poisonings.
Well, for me, I had an interest to help the kids be drug-free because at an early age, around 12, I discovered my parents were heroin addicts and drug dealers. And that really affected me. At first, I thought I couldn't go into law enforcement, but then later I realized that it wasn't my choices, it was my parents' choices. And I just have a passion to help young people stay drug-free.
Jean-Marc, what about you?
Yeah, so I share real openly that I'm in recovery myself, long-term recovery. Both of my adult children have struggled with mental health and substance use issues. And, you know, I'm a Navy veteran and was in the business world, but I always knew I was going to get into counseling. And so about 10 years ago, you know, started making the move. And, yeah, I mean, I come out of the Alcoholics Anonymous tradition, so I did a lot of, you know, volunteering in that before I was a counselor. But, you know, as Chris said, I've always been passionate about this, and, you know, it's affected my family. My mom's in long-term sobriety, my sister, and so it's kind of a family affair for us.
Chris, do you find when you're talking to young people, or perhaps people of any age, that your background, the story you just told us, does it have an impact? Do they hear it?
Yes, I remember the first time someone asked me a question. We had a box, you can ask any question you wanted, and someone said, "Did your family members, anyone use drugs?" And I said, "You want the answer or the story?" "The story." I told them the story, and I never bonded with more of a group of kids, I think, than when I shared that. And so I really saw how people connect when they realize you really know what they're struggling with.
Now, both of you have experienced addiction, understand addiction in your families and so forth. But what's different about fentanyl from what I've been learning is that, sure, there are some people that may be addicted to a drug, but so many people take one pill, and that it may be an illicit prescription drug, and they may have a prescription for it, or they may have had a prescription for it. How do you break through that to really help people understand that this is different?
I think the DEA's message, "one pill can kill," really summarizes it nicely, but you really have to teach that the only safe place to get medicine is a legitimate pharmacy, and that you don't take any medicine other than coming from your trusted adult or your doctor.
In 2020, 29% of the drug toxicity deaths tracked through the medical examiner office involved fentanyl. The very next year, 49% of the drug toxicity deaths involved fentanyl.
Why is that?
Well, because again, it's more available. When I started running this program, you know, back 7 years ago, fentanyl wasn't even on our radar screen. The only fentanyl overdoses we would see was somebody with a transdermal patch where they'd put a lot of patches on, or put the transdermal patches in their mouth. Maybe it was a suicide, or they were, you know, the powder, it was just before this time. So the availability of this fentanyl, the access through China, the powder through the cartels, it's made its way into the country, and all these other drugs are being cut with it: Percocet, oxycodone, Adderall. I'm sure the DEA agent, talked about that. But so all of these things, it just wasn't available before then, and then 55% last year of the drug toxicity deaths were fentanyl related. So again, deaths were remaining relatively flat, and I think we were saving a lot of people. There's a lot of things that have been done with, people carrying Narcan, EMS, and things. People are being resuscitated, but with fentanyl, it's difficult because sometimes, it's so potent, and sometimes you can't even resuscitate people. But with regards to the young people, young people have always, experimented. I started, medicating some depression with alcohol at 13. I couldn't have told you that's what I was doing, but it was. And so, we live in a chaotic world right now, where there's a lot of stressors. We're coming out of a pandemic. Young people have, I think I saw some statistics related to college students that 44% of college students are reporting significant depression, 37%, anxiety disorders, and 15%, seriously contemplated suicide. So I think that I are a lot of stressors. People may want to numb out or medicate themselves with an opioid, because it will do that for you. And unfortunately, with this fentanyl, it's just Russian roulette because it's so lethal. And so one of the things I try to drive home with the young people is every job application you ever fill out is going to ask you, have you been convicted of a felony? And if you say you have to answer yes, then it's going to be a challenge for you.
And we're not going to talk in this segment about the drugs coming in from Mexico, but tell me what happens to a dealer here.
Well, it all depends on what happens. We can do our part in law enforcement, and you spoke to DEA Chavez, and he's going to talk about a lot of the enforcement. We are going to aggressively do anything we can to prosecute, make arrests, get the highest charge, and then we send it to the courts. And then what they do, that's another thing. We can only control our part of it. So we're going to try to investigate and apprehend, because lives are at stake when it comes to fentanyl.
I'm glad you said that. Are the courts doing enough, or frankly, are there attorneys that the drug dealers know who to call and they got a good attorney that can get them off?
Well, you can just watch the news and see cases where you just are shaking your head and why is this person in all different types of crimes being released. And the recidivism, I remember one research where they said 85% of the violent crimes, this is a little different, violent crimes were committed by people who had already committed those types of crimes. And so they said if you would keep them incarcerated, we could reduce so much crime. And that might be true also with people who are dealing drugs. So.
Do you carry Narcan in your car or on your person?
All the patrol officers, I personally am not carrying it, but officers have been given that to carry in that squad car, and we've had several lives saved. I think last year, I think there was 3 life-saving awards given out specifically for saving people's lives.
And what about in your situation?
Yeah, I've got it in my truck, and I've got it in my office. Absolutely. I had, when we were doing the Plano Community Forum, there was a mother there that had a college student, and he's in a fraternity, and she said, should I give him some? And I'm like, absolutely. Why not?
Now, I've seen that Governor Abbott in the state of Texas has allocated $10 million to fight fentanyl. Federal government is devoting lots of money to it and doing campaigns. What else should be done? Because clearly we're not winning.
Yeah, we definitely need to start in the homes. A lot of times with parents, I've talked to parents, and some parents are concerned about talking to the kids about drugs. They're afraid if they have these discussions, maybe it's going to make them more curious and get involved in drugs. But we need to start early and have early and often to have age-appropriate conversations.
I hear that word age-appropriate. What's it mean?
Well, it means we had someone the other day. We have an opening in our unit, and we have a position where they'll be speaking to young children. And he started PowerPoint on fentanyl and went into this really complicated, and we're like, okay, that's not an age. It's way over these 3 to 5-year-olds' heads. So we're going to teach, so if we're talking to a child, like I do a lot of programs for the last 24 years, I've been in elementary schools during Red Ribbon Week. And I say, when we talk about drugs, we need to make this important distinctions. There are drugs that are helpful to the body, drugs that are harmful. What's an example of helpful? And they'll say, medicine, right. And then we get into that discussion, and then I have to make a very important point, that medicine taken correctly by your trusted adult or your doctor can prevent you from being sick, help you get well, and keep your chemicals in your body more balanced. But it's possible to abuse medicine. If someone comes up and says, hey, you want to try my medicine? That's the part that is this safe. And because of all of what you said, it is being placed in fentanyl, is being placed in all these illicit pills. There is no safe taking a pill off the streets. So that's one thing we teach, is about that appropriateness. And the other thing with adults is some parents who had a drug history say, I don't think I can talk to them and tell them to be drug-free because I'd be a hypocrite. No, you need to think like John Mark Meulman, where your experience and your training, you can share with them that, listen, I know because I've been there, and because I love you, I don't want you to have these negative, destructive consequences. Because some people will turn to drugs to solve their problems. It doesn't solve problems. It brings a whole new host of problems. Should you take medicine from somebody else? No. Because you know, and I'd even say that, and I do say this, I'll be saying this in front of thousands of elementary school kindergartners, that you don't take a pill because one pill could kill you if it had. But don't worry, you're going to be safe because you're going to be smart, and you're going to only take it from your trusted adult. So that's there. As they get older, we're going to have more conversations. We're going to have deeper conversations. We're going to talk to them about other drugs. Ask them what drugs they know about, and what do they think about this, and what would they say if somebody came up. And so as they get older, but you want to definitely have the conversations and let them know that you, as their parent, because you love them, you don't want them to take drugs. Because we can make our choice, we cannot choose the consequence. And some consequences are so serious that there are negative consequences, like not being able to get a job. I can't tell you how many people come to me, want to be a police officer, and guess what happens? They can't get in because of their drug history. And that's just one example. But with fentanyl, that's the biggest one, death. This one time can kill you.
John Mark, what would you add?
Yeah, I totally agree that it's got to be, starting in kindergarten. And again, it's like the message then is just don't take a drug that's not prescribed to you. And then you can, so like I went and talked to 6th graders, at a middle school, and I rode my unicycle for them, and it's like rode my unicycle around, and I'm like, and they're like, yeah, cheering me on. And I'm like, do you guys want to learn how to ride a unicycle? Yeah. Okay, well, you can do it. I was about your age when I learned, but you're not going to be able to do it if your brain is altered, so segue in talking about, how the, drugs affect the brain, and,
right.
and then with some of the, with the high school kids, I get a little more stark, it's like, cause you got to get them and, catch their attention. And so I'll start out showing them pictures of pop, and hip hop stars who have died from opioid overdoses. And I'm like, who's this? Who's this? What do they all have in common? They're all dead. And they're like, whoa, because we can't pull any punches with all this stuff. And you've got to, my thing with kids is they want you to just be honest and straight talk with them and real talk with them. And that's the thing, it's like parents, there's this myth with regards to drugs, sex, suicide. If we talk about it, it's going to plant this idea with them. They're talking about it with their friends. You want to be the person, that's educating them. You want to be able to put your input in there, because, you don't want them getting educated out on the streets or through social media. And so you got to have the conversations early. And, again, like Chris was saying, I have no problems with saying, I started drinking at 13 and, became an alcoholic. It didn't work out so well for me. It's like, and so, it's just, I want things to be, the thing that I always tell young people when I'm educating them is I'm like, hey, you know what? I love talking to people your age because I, feel like I'm going back talking to myself. And
You've been there.
Yeah, and I'm like, I was a knucklehead. I don't know that I would have listened to me, and you guys don't know me from Adam. You're going to do what you're going to do, but if you're willing to listen to me, I can save you some pain and trouble.
I want to hear more about social media because I heard a podcast a few weeks ago about how the drug dealers are really able to use social media like Snapchat or some other platforms to really get into the kids, often without the parents' awareness, with emojis and so forth.
I'm not deep into social media and drug use. I talk a lot to parents about, watching for the online predators who are trying to commit sexual crimes against them. Do you know much? I know they've got these apps that are called vaults.
I don't know about that, but you're absolutely right. That's where they're doing the deals is on social media, on the Snapchat accounts, and the thing that parents need to know is that most children have or young people have two accounts. They've got the account that their parents see, and then they got the other one that they're not seeing. And parents need to educate themselves about the dark web and about social media. There is access to really bad stuff out there. I mean, you cannot afford to be naive about all of this. You can go get, you can order.
You can order it on.
Yeah, you can order fentanyl from China, and it's like now the DEA has really cracked down on trying to catch that stuff coming through, but you can order this stuff in the mail, and it's like, it's all out there, and not just drugs, pornography. I mean, there is there's all kinds of stuff that, if I had a young person today, I would have filters, I would have their social media locked down, because my son,
until they're 18 at least.
Well, here's the thing, and I'll just be really honest with you because I need to own this. My son, when he started using drugs, I was asleep at the wheel, man. I just let him run the streets. I wasn't, I was relationally lazy as a parent, and I wasn't doing what I needed to be doing with him.
What should you have seen?
I should have known it. It was like, I should have just been engaging him, spending more time with him, and then knowing who he was spending his time with, because he was just running around with a bunch of guys that were, and a bunch of people that were doing stuff that they weren't supposed to be doing. And, it's like that's where it started with him. And my 31-year-old son, who's on probation, is sitting in Lou Sterrett jail right now behind his opioid addiction, and I wish that he had gotten consequences. The other thing I really want to say to parents is they need to let their children experience the consequences of their actions. I have so many parents enabling kids. I've got 20 parents of 25-year-olds who have a DWI calling to schedule their son's substance abuse evaluation. And I'm like, why are you calling me? Oh, well, no, you have him call me. It's his DWI. He's 25-year-old. He's an adult. But there's a lot of that. It's like trying to save them and, from the consequences of their action. It's enabling. It doesn't help.
Officer, one thing I'm really curious about is we hear about how they're drug bust. And with fentanyl, can dogs detect it? How is it easier to detect heroin and cocaine and so forth than it is to detect fentanyl?
Man, I'm going to have to circle back with you and give you that answer. I don't know about that, if they can detect fentanyl. Have you heard any cases?
Well, it's a synthetic opioid. It's not detectable under normal drug tests.
Yeah, I know that's true.
I think it's odorless.
Now, that's really interesting. Go on a bit more about that.
Yeah, so that's a thing that's really been problematic for us is that, first of all, the half-life of fentanyl is probably 48 hours. It's not in the system very long. And quite frankly, that's why a lot of young people are doing it because, if you smoke marijuana, THC can stay in your system up to 30 days. But, young people, it's like with an opioid, I can do it, could be out of my system in 72 days. So we've had young people on juvenile probation.
72 hours.
Huh? 72 hours, sorry. We've had young people who are on juvenile probation who can't smoke weed, but, maybe I can do some fentanyl and not get caught. And we've had young people who died from a fentanyl overdose from that. So you have to have a special drug test to test for the synthetics, and so it's problematic, and we're trying to figure out ways now. There was something that was on the Senate floor in Texas where there are these litmus things to test for fentanyl.
Test strips.
Yeah, the test strips,
right.
which were illegal.
Which are still illegal in Texas.
Yeah, and the drug dealers, because the drug dealers were using them to test for the purity, and that was the reason behind that. Well, they're trying
that's one of the reasons, because it was also that, I believe it was Senator Cruz who said that this, although he's the state senator, not in the Austin House, but he said that he views it as paraphernalia that will contribute to drug use.
Yeah, I think they're trying to overturn that because, that would be a quick way for us to be able to...
Don't overturn your coffee.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. That would be a quick way for us to be able to test for it.
Where should people go for more information?
Well, probably the DEA is probably one of the best sources for, so DEA.gov. They're going to have so much information about drug therapy. And then as far as helping, if in Collin County,
Collin County Substance Abuse Program, but another great one is the National Institute of Drug Abuse. There's some great resources there. There's actually a NIDA for teens, and there's stuff for parents. There's curriculum to educate your kids with. A lot of good stuff out there. SAMHSA's got good stuff.
And I think I know the answer to this, but just seeing your personality, you're probably willing to talk to any type of different groups.
Anybody can come. Yeah, you know what?
And do you have a website? How do we reach you?
The website is Collin County. It's Collin County government, and then you're going to find substance abuse, the substance abuse program under there. Collin County Healthcare Services is where we're located. But yeah, I mean, we deal with the consequences of addiction every day in the adults. Most of my adults are court ordered to come in and get evaluations. We want to do more prevention and early intervention. We got to get in front of this thing. You know, I mean, 11% of people incarcerated get treatment. We've got to focus more on early intervention, prevention, and we got to do treatment when they're incarcerated so to reduce recidivism. We can't just keep, warehousing people because it doesn't change anything.
Is it a public health problem or is it a criminal problem?
That's tough. I think a lot of it is going to be a lot of mental health problem. I know you talk a lot about that. There's so much there's lots of reasons where people go out and search. So it's both. One thing I want to talk about to those parents out there suffering, thinking that they should have done something more. They missed it, like you said. I know from my personal family that I was raised by my grandmother because of my parents' addiction. We all lived in the same house, and they taught clear, consistent messages by precept and by example. My mom made a choice. She liked the bad boys. She had bad consequence after bad consequence and continued to choose that.
How do you approach talking to a parent or a caregiver when they look at you and they say, you don't understand. My daughter is on the cheerleading team. She makes straight A's. Or my son is the quarterback. He's on his way to University of Texas, Plan B. How do you get through those parents to say, you got to talk with them?
Yeah, it's drugs. There's no respecter of persons. It hits all social economic backgrounds, all different types of people, and you cannot take the chance because their children are their most precious treasures. You cannot take the chance. You have to share these important things that can help keep them safe.
When you go home at night after hearing about someone who has been killed from fentanyl poisoning, how do you get up the next day?
I mean, that's my motivation, is I want to prevent the next person from happening. It's just, I'm driven by this. I'm passionate about it. It's affected my family. I've watched what it's done to my son. I see the young people, in our community who've lost their lives. And it's like, I am determined to get the word out about this. And, as Chris said, it is no respecter of persons. And I'll show them pictures. I've incorporated pictures of Sienna Vaughn and, the young people in our community who had everything going for them. They were bright kids. They weren't like, the trouble kids, the bad kids. I mean, they were from, good, supportive, nurturing families. And, it does not care. It doesn't matter about your socioeconomic status. It doesn't, it's no respecter of your religious beliefs. It will kill you just the same. And I can point out examples. We're seeing it in the media right now. Robert De Niro's grandson, they just came out with that. Fentanyl. And I'm not even surprised anymore. When I see a young person or, who should be, passing away and I'm waiting on the toxicology, I'm like, that's probably fentanyl. And, 9 times out of 10 it is.
Let me just say, unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Yeah, that's
but
fine.
I really want to thank both of you on behalf of our viewers, because the fact that you're willing and to share your personal story, and let's hope that people are listening to it, because what we know and we've heard, just one pill can kill. One pill can kill is the message that our U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency is sending very, very loudly. Just think of this. Over 150 people die each and every day in the United States, and 5, that's 5 in Texas, die every day from overdose, poisoning related, due to synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Many of them, if not most of them, are young people. And the number, unfortunately, as we've heard, is growing. So thanks again. And we're here talking about things that matter with people who care.